In this video, I'm going to share with you a short interview that I had the opportunity recently to do with Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib, plus some additional content that you're going to enjoy. All that and more coming up. Hello dog lover, my name is Sarah. I'm a dog trainer, also coach dog owners. In this video, I'm going to share with you something special. You must know Dr. Karen Becker. She's a world-renowned speaker, the most followed vet on the net. She uses integrative approach to pet care. And Rodney Habib is an international speaker, passionate advocate for animal wellness, creator of Planet Pulse social media movement, and also the creator of Dog Cancer Series documentary. I attended the grand opening of state-of-the-art raw diet pet food manufacturing company in Port Coquitlam, BC, Canada, the Red Dog Blue Cat Company. Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib were two of the speakers in this event, and I had an opportunity to greet and have a short interview with both of them. I'm going to share this interview with you, plus some additional highlights from this event. Enjoy. So here I am with Karen and Rodney Habib. You know them both. If you don't know them, you're under a rock. So I'm going to ask each one of them one question.
Yes.
So Rodney, I wanted to ask you, people ask me, as I'm a dog trainer, and people ask me,
yes,
I'm feeding my dog the best and most expensive dog food.
Yes.
What do you answer to that?
I would say, you know, as a pet owner myself, when I was first starting off, I too was under the impression that the more expensive a dog food was, the better it was for my pet. And of course, in 2007, life came crashing down very quickly with the 2007 recall that literally decimated pets all over America. I will say this for a lot of pet parents who are out there today, one of the biggest tips that I can give them is research how many carbohydrates are in your pet food. What is the carbohydrate level? What is the sugar, the starch level that could be building up in my pet food? You'll very quickly find that the monies that you think that you're spending that are very high-end expensive foods will be full of sugar. And it can be one of the most alarming things for pet parents to find out. So I would highly urge a lot of the pet parents out there to learn how to calculate carbs on your food.
Good one.
Great, thank you. And Karen, for you as a vet, how do you, or what do you suggest pet owners, dog owners in general, finding a vet that they can actually build a relationship?
Such a great question, and part of this can be so painful because not everyone has access to it. So twofold. So number one, it's critical that pet parents know enough that they become educated, because relying on a veterinarian, if you're partnered with a proactive vet you have in your area, huge blessing, but most people don't, which means if you are blindly following a veterinarian that doesn't align with your viewpoints, what you believe in, how you want to set up lifestyle protocols for your animals, if you don't have access to that, you end up being led astray and not know enough to say, this is not where I want to go, this is not what I want to do. So number one, educate yourself enough that you know you're making the best decisions for your animals. And number two, if all you have, there are some people in the middle of rural places that all they have is large animal veterinarians. You partner with the vet that you have, but you have a conversation with the vet that goes something like this. I love you, Dr. Jones, and you're a cow vet, and you're the only vet in my area, but I want you to know that I am going to be in charge of the animals that I'm caring for. So I want to partner with you, but I want to call the shots. I want to be able to make the decisions for the animals because I am the one in charge, and I want to be able to dictate in our partnership what's best for the animals, including how much I feed, what I feed, how much I vaccinate. I want to be in control of those things, but I want to partner with you.
I love that. You're in charge.
You are. And the only way you know that you're making the best decisions is to educate yourself. So my suggestion is to never blindly follow any veterinarian. You have to know in your heart that you're partnered with the right vet, and if you don't know that, keep learning.
Great. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Absolutely. You know what, to everyone out there, beautiful channel, beautiful man out there today, absorbing all of this knowledge. Make sure you subscribe to his page. He's doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
Thank you.
I believe in the next 20 years we will be moving towards identifying functional foods that specifically target these categories, which means we can provide better care of the animals that we're feeding. So exciting things coming forward. Today, I'm going to touch briefly about basic nutrition, which I really wish my pointer was working so I can come over there. I'm going to try it, which according to the NRC is meeting an animal's basic nutrient requirements to sustain life. That's the definition of what basic nutrition is. Now, anyone feeding fresh food knows that we believe an entirely different set of nutrient standards. We know that optimal levels of nutrition for our animals are not the same as basic bare minimum nutrient requirements. There's a huge difference between just getting by and nourishing a body for optimal levels of antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, whole foods, a totally different level. We know as raw food feeders that our goal is to, as closely as possible, mimic what those animals were designed to eat. That makes common sense to us. Our goal is to feed our animals everything that they need and nothing that they don't. We have all figured out that there are some inherent issues with this list of important things. It's hard to meet this list with an entirely processed, dead, inorganic diet. It makes it hard, and we have all come to that conclusion. We've also come to the conclusion that raw, unprocessed foods provide much of what we're looking for, and hence us deciding to feed our pets differently than probably what we were all taught when we had pets previously. However, out of this fastest growing segment of the pet food industry, what we are finding is this massive growth is bringing about all sorts of new companies that have beautiful intentions but are going through an evolution of recipes. We've got some brand new companies that have recognized this is a very lucrative business, and because there's no amazing handbook you can follow to produce beautiful species-appropriate foods, they're winging it. And out of winging it comes some complications that we're going to go over. And one of the reasons I want to talk about potential complications is not to be a Debbie Downer, but because if we really are focusing on intentionally creating this industry to be a very normal, healthy, and respected aspect of how we should be nourishing our pets, we have to look at maybe what we're doing wrong in an attempt to avoid making those mistakes in the future, but above all, not harming dogs and cats. Very, very important. So we have to talk about why veterinarians really have problems with raw foods, and part of this can be a quality control issue, but really a big part of this is that oftentimes they are the people, they weren't taught about raw foods in vet school. It's all these clients coming in saying, I want to do this, and people are doing it wrong. And doing it wrong is okay if it doesn't result in major metabolic dysfunction. But some people are doing it so wrong that they're harming their dogs and cats. So in an attempt to make good decisions, they end up inadvertently harming animals. Well, veterinarians get really angry about that. And then your vet says things like, I told you so, or why did you do this? So what our goal is to prevent that from happening through making sure that our clients have enough knowledge in their back pocket that they know and they're confident about the decisions that they're making. That's our goal as suppliers, as retailers, as pet parents, as veterinarians. Our goal is to make sure that we're doing all we can to educate people who are going to feed this food so that it gives conventional veterinarians nothing to argue or be frustrated about. Really, really important. How many of you have heard that theory out there that raw foods can make dogs aggressive, right? Have you heard that? So there's 3 studies, but let me tell you where the validity is in this. We have beautiful pet parents that when they see ground meat, 60-40 ground beef, in their brain they don't realize that 60-40 ground beef is 40% fat. If you feed a growing puppy cheap ground beef, there's not enough tryptophan in that ground beef to sustain a puppy's cognitive health. And it's not fluke or happenstance. If you are feeding a very high-fat diet to a growing dog, they actually, even though they're eating raw meat, they can be amino acid deprived eating an all-meat diet because they're poorly formulated. So those 3 research studies said, don't ever feed raw food. No, I would clarify, do not feed poorly formulated raw food diets because you can have significant behavior problems. The research is there when it comes to humans, and the research is there clear when you are feeding a high-fat, believe it or not, lower protein diet. There is not only changes in brain chemistry, but also the ability for dogs to want to work because of tryptophan deficiency. So those studies are valid in that the food was amino acid deficient. Even more confusing is if you're doing home-prepared diets. When you see a recipe that says add a teaspoon of calcium, a lot of people don't realize that the amount of calcium in bone meal or eggshell or oyster powder is variable. So step number 1, if you are feeding a homemade diet and the recipe says add X amount of any type of calcium, you know that that recipe has not been evaluated for basic nutritional adequacy. Point number 1, when it comes to balancing micronutrients, here are your tips and tricks for how you're going to know that the food that you're feeding is in the ballpark of making sure you're meeting bare minimum nutrient requirements. So there are some people, Kathleen, we love you. Kathleen feeds all of these things, brain, eyes, ovaries, hair, wool, feathers. Those animals are going to be just fine. You will be just fine if you feed these pieces and parts. But where do you even go to get them? That's not legal unless you are growing and harvesting them yourself, which she is doing. It's hard to get these pieces and parts, but this is where so many of the micronutrients are. So, the average raw food diet, even if it's beautifully prepared, even if it's organic, tends to be deficient in manganese, iodine, copper, zinc, vitamin D, E, and if you're growing, if it's a growth formula, sodium chloride and iron. So, manganese is found in the body, in bone, liver, testes, and pancreas, but it's in insufficient quantities, which means there's not enough to meet a bare bones minimum nutrient requirement. There is adequate amount of manganese in hair. How many of you want to feed lamb's wool or feathers or hair? Now, Kathleen does. And I will tell you, I have hardcore clients that will. You can totally meet your dog's manganese requirement if you want to feed hair. People say, well, how'd they get it in the wild? They ate hair. They eat all of those things. Goat hair, feathers, lamb's wool is the highest concentration of manganese. But they also eat the stomach contents, like it comes along with it, and there's a tremendous amount of manganese in the stomach contents of prey. Real world options, we know the highest manganese is found in cloves, ginger, cinnamon, wheat germ, and seeds, as well as mussels.
So, all they're trying to tell you now today is raw food's dangerous. Now, I know everybody in this room is like, come on, this is a waste of time for me. But you got to understand the first-time pet owner right now is scared, terrified because of mass media. And what they're telling people is, and what they're telling veterinarians, and what they're telling all of us is that there's no science. We have the science, the pet food science, and there is no science out there that can prove that there's any good to fresh food. And well, that's not entirely true. Because if anybody loves science, it's us. And there's a lot of science. And so for the people out there watching around the world, let us show you a little bit of science. If you will give me a little bit of time to run through this and not make this boring. So we went to Finland because Finland is flipping things on its head. You know, the Finns, they don't mess around, man. If the Finns want to find something out, you can't bribe a Finnish scientist. You're looking at PhDs there, like Dr. Anna Bjorkman. There's PhD student Robin Moore. We've got another wonderful PhD doctor right there, Dr. Johanna, and then Dr. Noura. All PhDs, all the best of the best, and they wanted to find out, once and for all, is there any benefit to this fresh food feeding? Now there's wonderful Daniel Orego, if anyone follows us from Keto Pet, who's now the CEO of Pause for Change. Dr. Becker, myself, and now we're sitting here in Finland, and you can kind of see the look on our faces, and they didn't know I was recording that, by the way. What we're looking at is this very interesting
result of a heat map that's ultra boring. Like I was looking at that and I kind of shut off when I saw it, and I was like, how am I going to tell the world about what I'm looking at right here? And it's super important. They took like a prescription diet of vet food, and then they took a raw food, and they fed it to dogs over an extended period of time, and there were the results. And what they were looking for were two things. The first thing was methionine. I'm not going to bore you with this because it can get boring. But methionine, if we look at science, too much methionine can grow tumors. Really, it can become a big problem. The second thing that they were looking for was this boring word called homocysteine. Now, homocysteine, if you have a lot of it in your blood, it can cause a lot of inflammation. So they were going to test for those two things in these dogs. Now, here's what they did. Now, some of you may have already seen this that follow us, and for those that didn't, for those in the world, we'll show you what they did. So in the first group of dogs, right there on the bottom, I only put the homocysteine. I didn't have any room for the methionine, but you get the point. Those are raw-fed dogs. And in this study, they remained feeding those dogs raw food, and there's their homocysteine levels. The other group of dogs were kibble-fed dogs. Now, these dogs showed almost 10 times the amount of inflammation than raw-fed dogs. So what they wanted to know was, well, what if we took a raw-fed dog and then we just gave him kibble? Check out the jump in homocysteine levels. And then over here, the kibble dog that was fed raw food was a 5 times decrease in inflammation. And so these Finnish scientists showed that if you fed your animal fresh food, you would lower disease markers in your pet, which would extend life. When somebody asked Dr. Becker, is it too late to switch an old dog over to fresh food? Not if you drop disease markers like that, it's not.
If you like this video and you want to become an educated dog lover and have a well-behaved, healthy and happy dog, consider subscribing to my channel and hit the bell icon as well so you will get notified as soon as I post my next video. Until next time, have fun with your dog.